Welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets Show. Skylar, Hoke here. Tom Jacobs, how we doing?
Always just do the thing that the No Lane Up guys do and just call it Dude Perfect Tour, and then you can't forget what it's called. I'm good. It's good. It's a bit of a tough week in terms of our bets, right? It didn't quite work out the way we wanted to, especially with on the other side of the pond with Willie Z. But that's what you get for jumping off a loot list 1 week too early. Yeah, all good. It's I thought Westwood was going to do it for us. He looks in good shape, right? Lost, what was it, 9 shots at one hole? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, waking up Saturday morning, seeing him go to get on 18, literally like the first hole I saw him, he was on 18. It's like, okay, you get in the clubhouse here, double digits, maybe we set ourselves up, and as bad as it could have went, it did, and then it went even worse.
That was the frustrating thing, is he was at 10 under, right, and that would have been good not to be in contention yesterday. 11 under 1. That is the and I would have trusted him implicitly, if he'd have been in that situation yesterday. Rory was faltering, Bland had to do a great job to get in, Hovland done a great job to get in. So, Westwood could have done his bit. So it's more the frustration more than anything, but it was a losing bet after all. That's
the real gut punch though is Zalatoris not winning on that, man.
Yeah,
feel so bad for him. I just want it so bad.
And I think the worst thing is everyone's going to view it as okay, he missed the putt, and it was he holed the ones that everyone expects him to miss all day. It was just, I don't think that's a gimme, right? Especially on Poana grass, especially that time of day. It was a pretty difficult, well, not a difficult putt, but it was easy to miss, and just missed it. And then Luke List had to absolutely pepper it at the playoff hole to win. So I would say that List won it more than Zalatoris lost it, right? So credit to Luke List.
100%. So we'll have kind of a double dip today on our preview. Of course, sticking with our first faithful love of the DP World Tour. I'm going to go through our event that we have here, but of course, the Asian Tour now taking over the Saudi event this week that sees the strongest field of any golf teeing up across the world this week. So we're going to go into our selection of the DP World Tour, and then we will go into kind of high level of both. I think, our normal times, but just really dig in as we have a weaker field on the DP World Tour. But would like to take a little time, of course, for all our subscribers or supporters out there. If you can be our subscribers, feel free, click like beneath our YouTube video. If you want any of the audio-only formats, you can find us at Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the Mix. Please rate, review, subscribe. It goes a really long way to us at Mayo Media Network. Tom, did you see Pat's tweet today of that studio that they got working?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Gorgeous,
it looks slightly better than this little background we've got going here. So maybe I'll have to get my Canadian visa and come and work out there.
There we go. Yeah, I think a work trip is needed up there to visit the studio for our gang. But without further ado, we can dive into the new event. I guess one of the new events on the DP World Tour, the Ras al Khaimah Championship, presented by Phoenix Capital. We're seeing that at El Hamra Golf Course. Actually, the next 2 events are going to be played here. Course hasn't been seen in a handful of years outside, I guess still was a handful of years ago when the Challenge Tour had 3 straight events, or 3 straight years of events on there, concluded, I think, at 18 with their Challenge Tour final, with the one and only Audrey Arnaus being the last winner at this course. We've seen Jordan Smith win here. We've seen Romain Langasque, play quite well. Sean Crocker, Bob McIntyre, a lot of guys that at the top of the field actually do have a little bit of familiarity with this golf course. We're not going to really go player by player like we've done in some of the other previews. It's Monday afternoon. DraftKings prices is not out. Odds were a little slower than usual this morning. But Tom, from the top of the board, who stands out to you?
So to me, I think anyone that's been listening to kind of the show regularly knows how bullish I think probably both of us are on Adrian Meronk, right? But certainly I've been, quite vocal about it. And he was second here when it was a Challenge Tour event to Jens Dantop, who actually eagled the first playoff hole to beat Adrian Meronk there. And it's interesting because you never quite know, Dantop had won at that level before, or had won twice at that level. I think that might be his first. But You never know quite how Ronk would have reacted if he'd have won that event, and how they'd have kicked on. So it would have been interesting to see, because that could have changed things, but he didn't. And I think whilst it's been a slow grind to this level, like he's really impressive. Like he just keeps staying in the hunt, right? And that's what you want. And I think it's 3 top 8 finishes in the last 9 starts now for Adrian Moronk, 4th last week. And when people were sort of going away over the weekend, he kind of came to the fore, and I thought that was pretty impressive. Like 4th last week, he's ranked 8th in strokes gained approach, 16th in tee to green. We know he's kind of like a big hitter. They like to remind you that on the broadcast. Very tall, doesn't look like a golfer. But he is one, and he's a very good one. And I think that he's going to return to a golf course where he's obviously got familiarity with. I don't know if they'll maybe set it up a little bit differently this week. But it's a bit of an edge, right? Like off the top of the board, I think having the guy that has played here and got good memories of it should go well.
Yeah, the issue I have is I think there's a handful of golfers that you could make that similar argument for. I do like the short-term form that Meronk's in. I loved what Jordan Smith displayed last week. Great ball striking, a winner at this course. I like to see what Langasca has done recently. He's been really good off tee. I think he has multiple top 6 finishes at this event. They're just, I can make that similar argument. And in this weaker field, Byrne is the favorite at 11-1. Byrne played quite well last week. But you'll see on the Saudi cards, I made a little bit more selections near the top of the leaderboard. Felt this event set up a little bit better for long shots for me. So I'm passing overall, not because I don't think many of these guys will play well, because I absolutely believe they will, but it's just more harder for me to plant a little flag. I take more kind of focus deeper into the odds board. One golfer, it's weird to see the price, but I also think the price in some sense could have been much lower. It's Ryder Cup captain, Padraig Harrington.
Yeah.
Is there going to be pushback betting him at 60-1? Our friend Martin probably will give us a little bit on Twitter, but Martin does that from a time or two on quite a few selections. That's why we love him.
Yeah,
but,
he could be like 500-1. He'd say the same thing. So it doesn't really matter.
So Harrington has just been so consistent, like oddly, just top 20s everywhere he's showing up. And when I looked at, or not even, I think Ben Coley wrote this well in his piece and why he's on Langasca. It's just the guys that did play well here are great drivers of the golf ball. And Harrington's sneaky just been so good off the tee for, a decent amount of time now. I think there's just enough in there and enough of these good finishes that I could have seen him being 33 to 40. Not saying that's a correct market price, but based on some of the form with the other golfers, I think that argument exists for Padraig Harrington, and he's double the price of them. So that is where I am going with my first selection.
You'd have taken Padraig Harrington's name out and just looked statistically and form and everything like that, right? He would be priced with the likes of JB Hansen and Thomas Deitch, Alexander Bjork down there. So I can see the point. I can also see why people wouldn't want to bet him at 60-1, given his advancing years, right? But it's one of those events where I don't think you need to be afraid to take him either. I'm just going to use my classic line of I'll just wait until he's a bigger price, because if this is to stay for the season, now the Ryder Cup's out of his way and it's long term, we're going to see him at 150-1 in an event where he could just as likely win. I don't think he's done winning, right? Like, I think he's capable of winning. I think he can still get over the line. So I don't feel the need to go to him here, but I do see the appeal. But I think it's a good point you said about Meronk, in the sense that like all of those guys can kind of do the same thing. I think the reason I kind of went with Meronk is like I feel like he is advancing and he's going forward and progressing and he looks like he's ready to win. Whereas I think the guys like Jordan Smith have kind of proven to us what he's like. Yes, he's obviously won this golf course and he's got that experience, but it worries me at this level, even though it's a slightly weaker event. Like, how is he going to cope with going up against Bernd Wiesberger on a Sunday? I think Meronk is better suited to that, possibly. Less scar tissue, especially with a putter. But my next selection, which is completely against the grain for me, is Marcus Armitage. He's just striking the ball so well. And like, when I looked at the current form, it's actually just better than I remember. Like, I just don't remember him being 12th last week, 16th at the DP World Tour, 19th at the Dubai Championship. So all of those just kind of local to Middle East. 6th on approach last week, 18th tee to green. Like, I don't really need to see anything else from Marcus Armitage. Like, he had that good run during the kind of the first return to golf after the pandemic. And I think we kind of get back into those fields again now where like he could come to the fore a bit, whereas like I think he gets lost in that kind of Dubai Desert Classic, Abu Dhabi type thing, whereas what he's done over the last couple of weeks is good. Whereas I think now he can actually go into contention.
Yeah. I mean, I love rooting for Marcus Armitage. He's one of the best golfers out there from an attitude, from just the way he plays. I really, really like him. We agree on a selection right in this same range as well. I think we got 2 rounds out of the golfers we were so excited for, the South African swing. You know, all these Challenge Tour graduates that are mega talented. You know, they're popping up left and right onto the DP World Tour for starts. And, you know, they are pushing, you know, they're placing, they are making a run at things. We've seen it over and over again. So in a weak field to start off their season, basically start off their year for a lot of them, I think it's ripe for the taking in this opportunity. And the prices, again, not that they're incorrect, they just haven't had enough sample size to really figure out what they're going to do. So do you take the risk early? I think that's where I like, you know, the opportunity. In the first one, he did play at the Abu Dhabi, sneaky 25th place finish, but probably the class of the graduates was Julian Brunn. You know, just 29 years old, you know, been around a little bit longer maybe than some of the other guys. But Brunn came out there, played quite well. Abu Dhabi, I think the 25th place finish was actually a little bit misguided as
he was third after 36. 10. So yeah. he was in third place and he just had that terrible Saturday, right? That a lot of other guys did as well.
Yeah. So I think he fought through that wind well. I mean, Joburg, he was inside the top 12. I think after those 2 rounds, he finished 12th there. I mean, he didn't graduate with the same, you know, season that some of the other guys might have, just because people can rip off top 5 in the Challenge Tour like no other. But, you know, multiple wins, just really consistent overall. I think 60s is shorter than I hoped, but not short enough that I'm not going to back him because I feel like he, you know, he's just better than a lot of guys around here.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of like my last one in. There was a couple of people that I was kind of looking at and I couldn't quite decide. I mean, you know, there was kind of like Ryan Fox. I actually preferred if he was going to be over in Saudi. I did consider JB Hansen because he's hit the ball well, played well here in the past. And the first showing I saw of him was 25-1. So I kind of avoided him when he came to 35, which is what kind of maybe look a bit further down the board. And that's when I came to Brunn, right? Like, I think that he's just, like you said, I think he's like that seasoned version of the Challenge Tour graduates. Same with Ricardo Gouvier. Like, they've been there, done it, and they've improved and now coming back for seconds, if you like. So I think it's a good time to take Brunn on because I don't think he's going to be this kind of price for long.
Yep, 100%. So big fan on him. And then after that, for me, I'm taking shots deep down the board as we go. I think you could have made an argument for a handful of others around here. I think DraftKings will probably be smaller contests overall this week, sadly, but they won't be offering Saudi either. So I think, you know, we're pretty much just going to have to focus on there. But I mean, you know, you see the likes of, you know, you got Hautong who bounced back a little bit there. You know, Eduardo Molinari, Callum Shinkwin, another great driver of the golf ball kind of in here. Danny Willett, 60-1, who's, you know, maybe has the most pedigree in there. You know, people feel like they've forgotten about Rosner, Højgaard brothers. Like there is, you know, right around there, but I'm just much more willing to just back it up into the hundreds and really get deeper with other Challenge Tour or not everyone's Challenge Tour. Let's go. Who are you on next? Your guy fits in that mold.
Yes, I mean there was a couple of guys you mentioned there that I thought was interesting. Like Eduardo Molinari was someone that I did think about. Did worry me, as he always does with the putter, right? And I think I've just been there too many times to to put myself through it again. I've already had 2 stressful weeks. Don't need another one. Scott Jameson, I thought was a decent price at 70-1. You know, the way he's been playing, and Brandon Stone as well hit the ball really nicely last week out of pretty much nowhere. So I like that. And then I was kind of speaking to Brad about this on Twitter earlier. You got kind of like Hella Kilda and one of your guys you're going to come on to, so I'll let you talk about him. But just that Nicola Moller and people like that, just guys that are just ready to take this step up and kick on. Even Gouvier, they're 150s. I think there's just a lot of upside in those. But I did land on Frederick Lacroix. Like, I think his has just been so consistent. Like you liked him a lot last year. Finished, you know, with a blaze really. You know, 28th, 5th, 2nd, 5th. His last finishes before Christmas. Shot a 70 opening round at Abu Dhabi, which is fine, and then a second round 80. And I just think I'm going to forgive him that. Like, I think there's just some testing conditions there, tough golf course. I just want to see what he does again. Like, if he's this price in this field and he goes well, I think I would kick myself if I didn't take him, because, you know, he's got the potential to be half that price.
Yeah, I really like the kid. Shot 100 round 2 of that Abu Dhabi event after he was in the mix after the first round, but the wind literally blew him away. But yeah, I liked him that first event that we got in South Africa. Yeah, I absolutely think he's got talent there. The one that I went with, if we're staying on this mold, I went with Yannick Paul.
Yeah.
Yannick,
which I'm glad you did.
We know him best, at least in my area, from the Outlaw Tour excellence that he displayed. Him and his brother both were elite out there on the Outlaw Tour, and, you know, rolled that over into an excellent season on the Challenge Tour. Again, we don't know enough about these golfers from a strokes game perspective to really understand where their best attributes are. You know, he was really good ball striking in those couple events that we saw, or the couple rounds that we had saw in that first event. But his Challenge Tour season was just, you know, top 10 after top 10 after top 10. Didn't have a victory on the schedule. So potentially that is why we get a little bit deeper versus some of the other guys. So 125-1, I think there's enough juice in top 5 graduate, probably.
Yeah.
I think there. So yeah, I like Yannick.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. I think, you know, as I said to you earlier, I think I'm quite glad you went with him, because he was one that, he was just in that group of guys, right? That I just think that all of them, you can kind of just fire them off early, find out what they are. And if after a few events they haven't done it, then you reevaluate. But as far as we know, that they're full of confidence, they're in good form, and they're all capable of playing this level. So until we're proven otherwise, we just let it go.
Yeah, we take the shot at the odds that are given to us here. I'll group these next 2 together, and I'll let you carry out the final pick that we both have. But when you get into this range, again, it's golfers that you might just not rely on the statistics for, you know, that you kind of know what they are at their best, and when they've came through. And the first one that really jumped off the page to me was getting Daniel Van Tonder at 110-1. You know, one of my good buddies, Chris, sent me a text this morning, Ferreter, and he was just like, you know, getting DVT in this field at triple digits. You know, it's just something that, you know, I mean, he leads a PGA Championship in tee to green. He wins on the European Tour last year. He wins all the time in South Africa. You know, he just has that extra pedal to the metal in him that maybe others in this range were just not confident have that. And he's great off the tee. You know, I think, again, if we bring it back to the drivers, he's somebody that I just trust is really, really good off the tee.
Which is bizarre, because he has the worst looking golf swing in the entire world, right? Like, he just sends it so far one way to hook it back. It's like, just learn how to hit it straight. You don't need to hit these slinging draws every single time. Like, I'm not a golf coach. I'm terrible at golf, but that cannot be good. Like, one day that is just gonna just go right and stay right, and it scares me. But like you say, the upside on Daniel Van Tonder in this field is different level to maybe some of the people in his price range.
100%. And I won't, you know, give a monologue here as we go to the next selection, which is I think the same exact argument for Guido Migliozzi, right around in this range. First 4 rounds of the year haven't been pretty. I won't lie to you; they have not been good. He gets a featured group. Just. But the number here, if we're just going to rewrite things, we've seen guys come back from absolutely zero form to do it. He's done it before, so of course I'm going to let myself do that.
How close are you to not betting him?
Oh, I'm not even close. We got a long year.
You don't wake up and just go, it's like a drug. Like, it's just easy. Like, you don't even think about maybe I shouldn't this week. Like,
no, I'm not there. Not there at all. There was another trio of golfers that I did have interest in. That'll be probably where I end up being pretty exposed on DraftKings. Christopher Broberg, I think, is a great play. He's shown off a ton of ball striking, which is odd because he was a putter, winning him and placing him so well for a time. So Broberg, decent price. I really, really wanted to bet Richard Mansell, and I had to just think about, he's been off for a good amount of time. Off the tee, though, he arguably could be the best golfer off the tee in this field, and that one would have hurt if Mansell was to win. But then I think about it, how many times we bet him, and he's in the top 10 after 2 rounds, and then he's not sniffing it by Sunday morning.
I think I bet Richard Mansell 40-1 once, right? I think that happened, and I probably won't ever forgive myself. But again, like, I saw him absolutely crunch the ball off the tee at Royal St George. Like, he was just phenomenal. Like, you watch him, and he's like one of the most impressive people to watch off the tee. So it's there. It's just piecing it all together, right?
Yep, 100%. And then the last one for me. It has to be Andrea Pavon. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, man.
It's written down here.
Decent. Yeah, I wanted to do. He was. So if anyone saw my DraftKings lineups last week, I apologize. Okay, because we're going through a few things. Late at night, was building. I didn't set a minimum salary, and for some reason, I had lineups that were just like all guys 6Ks. So I had a good clip of Andrea Pavon, maybe 20%. I think the field was less than half a percent, not less than half of what I had, like 0.5%. So that might have been on me. So I was feeling great after 18 holes, man. He's close to being back. I'm a little worried if this course does demand off the tee, he's still not there as, off the tee. But yeah, I think 130-1, I'm rooting for him.
So there was 2 lines of thinking, right? Is that he actually did marginally gain off the tee. And it was marginal. Like, he was the last person in to gain strokes on the tee, and it was like 0.003. So he wasn't a real gainer. Like, but when we always talk about, and you can't really apply the same thing, we always talk about bad putters kind of getting to zero at putting and just, right? And him just getting to that baseline of off the tee isn't going to win him a tournament, but it's going to keep him in them. And that's what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, right? He's actually got there and stayed there. And even when you think he's going to go away, he makes a couple of birdies. He's played here twice, finished 19th his last start here. I wrote question marks next to him, and that was where I got to, because I want to do it. And I do think, I don't know if he's back, because back to him is winning, right? He's done it multiple times, but I think he's in for a steady season. I think he's capable of stringing together some top 20s.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it, man. I'd really like it for him. I think beyond that, you see our guy Jackson Brar still really long odds as he fights his way back. I know Brad is on Connor Seam at 200, feels decently long from who he's surrounded by. You see, Sebastian Soderberg is deep. I'm a fan of Angel Hidalgo. I think he's like 150-1. I think he showed up quite a bit in that South Africa event. But there's one standout long shot that we're both in on, and I believe it was 400-1. Yeah. So sell the world on Tom McKibben.
So before I settle on Tom McKibben, I'm just going to say one thing on Ollie Wilson. I think it's just I tend to follow what he's doing because he's been on the podcast and he's good to talk to, but he has just been dialed on Instagram, like workouts, golf exercises, improvements, like just constant all over the winter break, just updating us all with his game plan. I don't think people go to that kind of level of like engagement and showing everyone what they're doing if they're going to play crap. And I know that sounds like a really poor approach, but I think to me, if I'm awful at golf, no one sees what I'm doing. If I think something good's coming, I'm going to start posting it every single day. And he has not stopped talking about his golf. So for me, I just thought he was someone that was maybe worth looking at from maybe a DraftKings or a top 10, top 20, because he was 22nd here at the Challenge Tour final. Tom McKibben, right? So we were on Tom McKibben last year. I think it was, I'd like to say it was the ISPS handler, but I think it was actually the Hero where he missed the cut. And it was basically just some potential, right? He's so young, like 2002 he was born in, so he's 20 years old, and he actually won his first professional win in a minor tour event in the US, local to you, right? In a minor league golf tour.
The MLGT minor league golf tour major. They have 4 majors a year. I mean, that's one of their bigger events. I think he shot 66, 62 to win. And that was recently. That was like 3 weeks ago. They kick off the event with that. So yes, that was big for Tom.
And to me, like, that's huge. Like, not because the result has any correlation to success on the European Tour or DP World Tour, right? But just getting your first win as a professional. He's still 19. He hasn't actually turned 20 yet. He's won $10,000. Like, that keeps him going, traveling, whatever. I'm sure he's got plenty of sponsors considering how young he is, the potential. But he can now just come here and just go, right, I've actually won a tournament. Like, there's a difference between winning tournaments as an amateur, and we've seen it with some really high-class amateurs who've just won tournaments and then just done nothing. And it's hard. It's really hard. So if you can go and win at any level, like you see it all the time, like even on the PGA Tour, we see people come from like Latino America and Mackenzie Tour or Formy Tour, whatever it's called now, and then to Corn Ferry, and then they work their way up. Like, he's gonna do that. And I think, we sort of like Dale Whitnell played well in Florida over the Christmas break, then played well when he first came out. And I just think that McKibben could ride the wave. I think it was back in, was it like 11th of January this happened, that he got this win. Pretty sure he's from the same golf club as Rory McIlroy was back in the day, Hollywood. So yeah, that's about all I've got on him. There's nothing strokes gained. There's nothing. It's just more of a confidence thing of someone with high potential winning his first event. Yep.
No, completely agree. And he had like a phenom type of like early like junior type of events when he was kind of going like the Big Golf Channel like article I pulled up that Romine wrote that called him a 17-year-old prodigy, like big time. He chose not to go to the University of Florida and pursue a professional route. So yeah, I think getting that win on the minor league golf tour and being able
and
to
everyone has an opinion. And everyone has an opinion, right, on people not going to college now, because it's just like sorry to cut you off there, but like Akshay Bhatia just backed himself, didn't he, at like 17, 18? And I don't know that he's quite as good as Akshay Bhatia. Like, there's no way of knowing that yet. But like you say, the way he's being spoken about, the circles that he's in, the people that he can lean on, suggests that he has that quality. And when you look at what he did in limited starts on the Challenge Tour and European Tour last year, it was fine, like 34th, 26th, 39th, 49th. He was 18 years old. Like, I think that's pretty impressive. And that last one, the British Challenge, he opened up with a 74 and it just bounced back with 3 under par rounds. So I like the fight he's got in him, and I think he could go well in a small event.
Yep, 100%. So excited for him. So that puts a bow on our DP World Tour. We'll wrap the picks one more time at the end of the show. If anyone fast forwards the whole thing, if you are one of those people, just like the show for us. Just give us a review. We'd appreciate that. But let's bounce on over to the Asian Tour. Now the controversial, well, I guess always the controversial, now the non-European Tour event that we see the likes of, some of the best players in the world teaming up. This now kicks off.
Even better, right? Even better now.
Yeah, that kicks off the 2022-2023 Asian Tour season that just had wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. I mean, if you look at kind of the top of the odds board. You know, DJ, who 2-time winner here, second place finish the other time. Xander, Hatton, Cam Smith, Sergio, Bryce, Paul Casey, all under 20-1. Tony Finau, where Tony should have won this event, arguably last time out. Really should have won the event. You'll talk about that guy a little bit later on. Thomas Peters, 20-1. You know, this field is littered. Leash, Fleetwood, Answer. You know, a ton of talent going over, mixing in with the DP World Tour best, some of the best, and with the Asian Tour best. They had their order of merit. The top of these guys got in there, and then they do have some additional invitations into this event too. So I have a handful of selections. I think we have to start off this again. We're recording this at 2:30 on Monday afternoon. Joaquin Niemann had opened at 40-1. No brainer. You know, we were all over Niemann, who quickly has been repriced into the 20s. We're seeing him as short as 22-1. If you were one of the lucky souls that got the 40s, you know, good game to you. That's a great bet. All aboard that. We would have loved to ride that off with everybody. But at this point, a little tough to talk because that price has been cut in half. So, Tom, who would you like to kick off the discussion about in Saudi?
Yeah, I mean, that price for Joaquin Niemann lasted a lot longer than I expected as well, right? Like, especially with 365, it stayed there for a long time. But perhaps slightly worryingly, I want to stick with Kevin Na after his efforts last year here.
That's the one. Yep.
It was tough, right? Like, he was right there after 2 rounds. I think, I can't remember if it was he 4th after 2 rounds? I think he was.
Great
and
mix, yeah.
You know, this place is surrounded by sand, but he found the most penal part of it on every single hole. And he just constantly just found bunkers. And then he would just chop it. But he shot 63 in round 2. Like I'd said, I had a very 2-prong attack last year. It was Kevin Na and Justin Rose. And they were 66-1, both of them. And I was like, how are these 2 people this price? And after 2 rounds, I was like, well, you know, genius. Like 4th and 14th, they're currently sitting. Justin Rose came on in the 3rd round as well, in the 4th round. Kevin Na did not. But he has just been superb. Like, he is, you know, he's this price in a PGA Tour event. It is basically a PGA Tour event at the top of the board, right? But you can cut out half the field, whereas you can't do that in the PGA Tour. Like, after we get past 100-1, are any of them really going to win it? Like, I know we've got a couple of guys that we like and people that we want to talk about, but the winning upside isn't there for basically anybody else below 100-1 mark.
Yeah, it's a different ball game. Playing places, when we have this type of the field, but those places are still triple the odds of a good amount of
Correct.
these guys. The one, I didn't have the stomach to do it, but Tommy Fleetwood's approach game last week was back to
insane, peak
Tommy last. So, but 28, I just couldn't do it when you see this field. When he was 28 I guess that field was probably similar.
But I don't think it is right, because it's interesting you say that, because I know Morikawa and Rory were there, but that was, and Hatton was there, but this is DJ, Xander, Cameron Smith. Like, Cameron Smith is like taking his game to a new level. I don't think Bryson's right, but Bryson's here. Tony Finau's here. Paul Casey's here after a decent week. Like, Thomas Peters has just won. Mark Leishman. It's so deep in that kind of range. Jason Kokrat's a different golfer than he was if he had been here last year. Like, so I think it actually is a strong event, and it feels like he is too short a price.
Yeah, I just couldn't stomach it. The one though, I think that I just, again, maybe we're falling fault to looking at these guys' social medias, of course, in addition to the statistics, but sneakily Sam Horsfield had like a really, really good eight rounds to start the season. I guess maybe 7, because Saturday this past week was bad. Bad enough that, if he would have simply kind of should have found himself more in the mix. And that's Horsfield. That's what he's done, many of times. So I think overall, just, knowing he has that in, his bag of tricks, unfortunately. Ends up kind of giving us a number that I think still got some juice in it. I mean, the guy, sky high talent, we know, but I just feel so good coming out of those two events. Seems to have really high confidence. I think he can win, a big event, and this could be the one. So I'm definitely in on him taking that momentum.
I've had a hard time with him, right? Like I look at it and I go, like, he's basically being given credit for something that's irrelevant. Like he's being priced at 40-1 because it's an Asian tour event, but it's like made up of a lot of DP World Tour players, right? How would he be priced in a PGA Tour event, and would he be next to Jason Kokrak?
I mean, we see it with Minwoo Lee this week. Minwoo 80. He was 80 in some of the American sports books, probably closer to like 40 to 50. But yeah, you'd think Horsfield would probably be double the price he is right now.
But that's what concerns me. And I am completely on board with what you say. Like, I think the spectrum for his results is win, it's miscut, and there's somewhere in between as well with him, right? And I think that there's absolute merit to take him on. I just think that I just couldn't understand the price. It was especially alarming when Neiman was the same price this morning. Like, I was like, you've got Neiman, Kokrak, Patrick Reed. Like, I don't really want to back Patrick Reed at the moment, but Abraham Ants is only 33-1. Like, it felt like there was a lot of guys around him that were too good to be priced in the same bracket. But with that said, if you believe he can win, why not?
Yeah, I think that's more where, I think both of the selections for me, kind of right around here are just, you put your foot down on the golfer versus maybe the number in this situation. Yeah. I think, and that's, we're both going to talk about it, but if you want to say similar to Ju Young Kim, I think it's now our time to really discuss what he can do with this opportunity.
Yeah. Look, I was curious as to whether you were going to go with him. Again, I was speaking to kind of people earlier saying, like, is it Ju Young Kim week? Are we going to get on him? Hoping for a little bit of a bigger price. A little bit like a Takumi Kanaya type thing that you kind of almost want to be on, a bit of a FOMO bet, I think, because realistically, when you look at what he's done, like 49th at the CJ Cup when he's been in this field, 33rd at the Corrales, like he did that 15th at Puerto Rico, but that's a lot weaker field than this. So when he's been making a step up, he hasn't quite done it yet, but just the current form is ridiculous. Like second, 7th, first, second. Like, I don't care where you're playing. And these aren't like small events for the Asian Tour. These are big, top Asian Tour events. This is why he's 80th in the world. Like, there is merit to it. And I don't think he's scared of anyone. I don't think he's like the type that's going to get intimidated. It's just whether he still stands out when all these guys are here.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, again, it's the FOMO type of like.
I'm effectively contradicting what I just said about Sam Horsfield, right? Like he probably shouldn't be in this price range.
Yeah. Yeah. but no, I just still the sky high upside around. You can. You're surrounding him with PGA Tour winners. I did almost want to go back to Westy. That one I think would sting a little bit. But he would probably be the next golfer for me. And we saw Victor Perez play well here, in the past. Vegas, doing well. To your point about your selection last year, but you can probably get very lost with the names in an event that we don't normally get. And next thing you know, you're running up a tab of a good amount of selections, and that's where I'm trying to kind of put my foot down.
I could have literally bet like 6 guys this range. I really liked Matthew Wolff. I just wrote him down, and there was no substance to it. Like when I looked at his tee to green numbers recently, I had to kind of step away. Like I was like, no, this is not good. When I looked at Westwood, his course form, he's been here 3 times, missed the cut twice, 50th in the other. So as much as I think he can do anything at any time, like I was happy enough to pass him up after last week's disappointment. Bubba Watson interests me when he was like 125-1. Like he's now 80, so it's a lot easier decision. But I don't know what he's been doing. Selling books, I think, has been his thing at the moment. running a sweet shop as well. So I think he's taken his eye off the ball a little bit, and I don't think you can just come out and beat Dustin Johnson, Xander, Tyrrell Hatton, Cameron Smith, Sergio, Finau, all of those when you've not been quite at it. So I will pass him up, but he was probably one of the names that if he won, I'd be like, well, why does back Bubba Watson a non-major 100 spot?
Yeah. Ashton Wu played decent for us last week. Didn't
in the end,
didn't really sniff any sort of a place, but if he can continue rolling it, it's ended up being, do you select the guys that are in ripe form on the Asian tour? Mayo Kim, very famous for throwing up the finger. Mayo Kim there, who was probably the second or third best, probably the third best player on the Asian tour this past year. I really can't get into too deep of the pronunciations, but I know Saddam Kawakanjana was really strong.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. For a good portion of the year, like just top five. Like this would be a perfect DraftKings week if you had these, because you get to play these guys within the sevens. That I would love to. I mean, Sharma's 200 to 1. The one golfer that I had to hold back from betting is probably the number one upside amateur in the world, which, if you talked about pronunciation earlier, Rachanan Chantanawan.
Oh, yeah.
I think I added an extra one on that.
I like it. This is great.
14 years old, just playing unbelievable. I mean, if anyone watched the Singapore event, played with and kind of waxed Casey on that first day, like it was absolutely nothing. Third place at that event, a third the week before. He had another second place finish. He's had some elite finishes already in his career. Again, 14 years old. So I think he's one to keep an eye out on. I mean, even the odds weren't that bad potentially for a place.
He's almost too young to be afraid. Do you know what I mean by that? Like if you're 16, 17, 18, and you're like, right, this is it. I've got to make my jump. I've got to test myself against Dustin Johnson this week. He doesn't care. He's just going to turn up at a golf tournament, just play it, and then go home and play the PlayStation or whatever. Like he doesn't care. Like,
yep.
And he's so good at golf. Like Paul Casey was literally sitting there going, like, this guy destroyed me today. Like all I've done all day is try and keep up with him, and you're not going to get these prices about Ratchanon, I'm going to call him, for long. Like, which is ridiculous. He's 14 years of age. Like,
for sure.
It's going to be too much for him, right? Which is obviously why I think you've kind of kept him off. But I wouldn't mind a little top 20 or whatever. Like, I think that's fine.
Well, you got one FOMO selection that you got deep down the board that you had to get a piece of. Who was that?
Matteo Menacero is 500 to 1 with Unibet, right? And yes, I know Matteo Menacero is not Matteo Menacero anymore, but we let ourselves get excited last year with the kind of comeback to form. And when I looked back into kind of previous starts, he shot 66 round one here back on his debut, which, it's not enough. Like, it isn't enough to go and really back in too strongly. But his last three events on the Challenge Tour, 28th, 3rd, 8th, didn't do well in Joburg, but he never played well there. Like, it wasn't like a COVID situation. It wasn't. He's just never done it well, even in his peak, right? So I think he's on his way back. I hope he's on his way back. And if he's 500 to 1 to finish in the top 6, then fine. Like, I will just have a go and hope that he shoots 66 and I get really excited on the first day. He won't win. But again, even JC Ritchie's down here like 500 to 1, that just absolutely tonks the ball off the tee again, like another one. But yeah, it's just one of those events where you could just spend time in this range backing absolute losers, like people that just cannot win because they're 5 times the price they normally are.
I'm gonna throw one from my end, and it's simply because you have a sponsor on the show, Tour Tips, who does a great job of kind of, especially when it comes to these type of statistic forms of golfers. They have the Asian Tour statistics built into there. So if we looked into Do Yi Moon, He had a 5th at Singapore. He had a 16th the week before, but statistically really showing some trends. I know Jamie Worsley was on him when he placed at the Singapore Open. Jamie's dialed in. Him and Brad both love and do well on this tour. So he seemed like somebody just right down the board, if I'm just doing my statistical analysis, kind of stood out with enough juice in that number. So that for me really wraps it up. I'm excited for a huge plethora of events across the world. All 5 Korn Ferry Tours in action again in Panama, LPGA right down the road from me. Hoping to get out there this week. But yeah, a lot of good golf. So I think with that, let's wrap up and let's start with DP World Tour picks.
Yeah, so in the DP World, I've got Adrian Maronk. I think he's about 25, 28 to 1 now. Then I had, who did I have again? That was next.
So blank. You would have went into Armitage.
Armitage, yeah, at 55 to 1. Then it was Julian Brun at 60 to 1. And then it was Frederick Lacroix at 125 to 1 for me in the DP World.
Yep. So for me, I am starting with Julian Brun, 60s, Padraig Harrington, 60 to 1, Daniel Van Tonder, 110 to 1, Guido Migliozzi, 125, Yannick Paul, Outlaw Tour legend, 125, and then Tom and I are both on the kid Tom McKibben at 400 to 1. And then in Saudi, picks in Saudi.
Yeah, so I mean, I really want Joaquin Niemann. I did bet the 40s. It's not there, right? But he was the guy that I think will win the golf tournament. That was my pick. Kevin Na, 33 to 1. I'm going to do it to myself again. Ju Young Kim to completely contradict everything I said about your Sam Horsfield pick. And then the FOMO bet of the week is Matteo Manacero. There's some 500 to 1 about him. Do not bet over 150 to 1 or 200 to 1 because you think I'm confident in him. He shot a 66 here once, and I'm going to bet him.
There you go. There we go. I'll go Sam Horsfield, 45. Of course, Niemann bright and early was the 40s. So Niemann, 40. Sam Horsfield, 45. Ju Young Tom Choo Kim, 50 to 1. And then Doyi Moon at 300 to 1. That puts a bow on our show for the week. Again, 2 events. It was fun kind of previewing both. Excited for it. Feel free to reach out to both of us on Twitter. Tom, where can they find you?
Yes, Tom Jacobs 93 on Twitter.
Perfect. And I am Sky Hook, DFS. Thank you guys for listening to another great week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets.